Hi, I'm Nee West and How Time Ticks. It's episode 6. No, you're not just here for the kicks, but for the memories and more European goals. After a period of redundancy, it had been nearly a year. It was November 2017 and time for these two Grecians to be deployed to a new empire, a new Europa League, another new country, and to a city where they say all roads lead, Rome, for SS Lazio versus Vitesse on. Before our flight departure, we sat down in our usual airport coffee shop for a late breakfast and large tea. Patiently waiting for our names to be called, the reason for a delay became clear. When the names adorning the cups barely resembled our own, and I was now called Hill. Mumbling King Hill, not again, I recalled this not being anything new, just another glitch in the Matrix, having adopted Ian, Liam, Meon, Nick, and Neo in the past. Painting a clearer picture, we flew into Leonardo da Vinci Airport, of course named after the legendary Italian icon. Our historical knowledge was due a renaissance, and our tune changed as we safely caught the TerraVision bus to Rome's travel hub and close by Repubblica Metro. We were a short walk away was our accommodation for the trip, Hotel Miami. A relatively basic stay this time, as we had concentrated on location, which was excellent, on Via Nacional, the sights and sounds being very much in our grip. Not venturing too far once we had settled in, our eyes set on a small pizzeria, naturally, which to our delight served up our first notice of regional bottles of national beer, Birra Moretti. I sampled both Siciliana at 5.8% and Piemontese at 5.5%, celebrating each region's local ingredients. Orange blossom for Siciliana, and blueberry and aromatic herbs in the Piemontese. This gave us a thirst for more, so we headed to Irish bar, the Flan O'Brien. They had live music, sport, and unusually the biggest selection of Carlsbergs I'd ever seen, sitting my buns down with a herd of premium strong Elephant Pilsners. Relaxing for the rest of the evening with 2 days of exploring the city to come, which would be sure to leave our feet in ruin. After hitting the hay a little drunk, we stepped out the following morning into an unfortunate scam. I had grabbed an energy drink for breakfast, but was still not prepared for the monster approaching. Dressed as a Roman soldier, looking overly glad to see us, offering to pose with us as if we were stabbing and slaying him with his sword to the throat, only to then turn and threaten to grab ours if we didn't hand him some euros. This was lesson learned, and we wouldn't make this mistake ever again, quickly noticing that every tourist area was filled with touting fraudsters, including this same guy. Consigning our costly error to the past, we were ready for Rome's gloriously rich history. After our monumental error, we spent the morning checking out the monuments and surroundings on our way to the colossal Colosseum. Atop a marble pedestal was Trajan's column, marking Emperor Trajan's triumph in the Dacian Wars. Into view from Piazza Venezia was the architecturally amazing Altar of the Fatherland and the Victor Emmanuel II monument, celebrating Italy's unification and first king. At his feet, the Adriatic Fountain, with its angry lion flanked by the Fountain of the Turanian and a beefy bloke on a she-wolf lying. From one she-wolf to another, the bronze sculpture of the Capitoline wolf, a vision suckling twins Romulus and Remus, a literal legend mothering the founders of Rome. It would be kinda harsh to call this pair plebs, but indeed we would encounter one who was buried within the plot, the tomb of Gaius Publicius Bibulus, granted the privilege of residing within the city walls by the Senate. We would then climb Capitoline Hill, the lowest and arguably most important to the city's history, to the Piazza del Campidoglio at the top, and a view of the senatorial palace. The square was designed by Italian master Michelangelo in the 16th century. We carried on our righteous path towards the Roman Forum, past the Theatre of Marcellus, an awesome open-air theatre built by Julius Caesar and Augustus. It was just the ticket for a lunchtime interlude. For a more than reasonable price of €12, which didn't ruin our pockets, we gained access to Roman Forum, Colosseum, and exploration of the Palatino. Within the Forum was Civil Courthouse Basilica Julia, Church Santi Luca e Martina, Commemorative Arch of Septimius Severus, and the Temple of Antoninus and Faustina, a dedication from Emperor Antoninus Pius to honour his wife. The sound of a crowd was crowing. We combated the corridors, cages and quarry that is the mighty Colosseum without a rustle, trod the steps of glorious gladiators, the course of the condemned, and their battles against the beasts. The 80 entrance arches ensured supporters would be seated swiftly, the VIPs perched on the podium, the wealthy getting the meaty middle tier, the plebs chumped into the cheap seats, and the women subjected to a stand up in the gods, unless they were a committed to celibacy 30-year Vestal virgin.
You are putting the pussy up on this pedestal.
Just outside of the Colosseum is the triumphant Arch of Constantine, commemorating Constantine's victory at the Battle of the Milvian over fellow Emperor Maxentius, and was seen as a conquest for Christianity.
I guess God has a plan for all of us.
God's a kid with an engine.
We then picked our way through the pine trees to choose the most panoramic views at the hilltop of the Palatino. Did a couple laps of the Stadio, a stone stadium said to be used for the Emperor's private events and games. This open green area attracted some nature too, in the form of a large rabbit and a whole flock of ring-necked parakeets, adding some vivid colour to the crumbling ruins. Feeling chirpy and having seen a few too many rooftop bars, we set sail to complete the day with a couple of crafty pints, traversing bridges, Ponte Palatino, Ponte Sestio, and Ponte Fabrizio, the latter two sandwiching small boat-shaped Tiber Island. Not deserted, it's home to 2 working hospitals and hosts film festivals. Our hunger would be healed at the striking open Balladine Birreria, a flagship open space with a flow of people, creativity and craft beer. The lavish long bar and overwhelming wall of beer bottles a sight to be seen, and a sweet end to a scenic day. Finished off with those same scenes being just as a light at night. Being Exeter fans, we were never likely to go on a pilgrimage, but we would cross many a bridge. From a day of relics to a day of rest and religion. We didn't have to rush, so first we would visit the nearby Basilica of San Pietro in Vincoli, known for the massive Michelangelo model of Moses, commissioned by Pope Julius II for his tomb. The Church St. Peter in Chains is so called as it's said to contain the chains that imprisoned first Pope St. Peter. We had one more stop before catching a metro from main metro station Termini, another masterpiece of Moses, the monumental Fountain of Moses, with enough water to douse any burning bush. On the way to the Pope's place, we hopped off the metro at the Flamini station and Piazza del Popolo. Designed to be Rome's main northern gateway in the 16th century, it contains twin churches, Santa Maria in Montesanto and Santa Maria de Miracoli. At its centre, the 13th century Egyptian Flaminio obelisk, acquired by Augustus. We had a choice of bridges to complete our voyage to Vatican City. With it being around lunchtime instead of Ponte Cavour, we crossed Ponte Regina Margherita to visit the Big Cheese and Big Q's in St. Peter's Square. Balancing time and money, we would focus on St. Peter's beautiful basilica, the second biggest church in the world, and marvellous Michelangelo does it again with his 190-metre high delicious dome and poignant Pieta. His superb and only signed sculpture, Mary holding a crucified Jesus in her arms. You can definitely see why the worshippers are mad on her. After a brief view of the Vatican grottos, we left what lay beneath, exited the arms of the church, and funneled back out to cross Bridge Ponte Sant'Angelo. Adorned with angels, Christ, we now had a shitload of steps to the heaven of our hotel, pooped, and time to put the feet up for the football to come. November 23rd, 2017. Eyes heavy, but we were match day ready. Sun shining and time to see more sights of the Centro Storico neighbourhood, starting with Trevi. After stoking our stomachs on the city's highest hill and picturesque parks fit for a president, it was downhill from there to the Trevi Fountain. Rome's biggest, taking up the side of Palazzo Poli. It's said throwing a coin in will mean you'll return to the city one day, or is that as mythical as the magical flowing figures? We would follow Roman walls past the Temple of Hadrian, a dedication to Emperor Hadrian from his adopted son Antoninus Pius, and made our way to the Piazza Bella Rotunda and the Pantheon, over 2,000 years old, a temple for all the gods. Constructed by the aforementioned Hadrian, its well-built bronze doors lead you to the dominant dome and its eye-opening oculus, shining light to this stunningly preserved structure and the tomb of the first king of unified Italy we met earlier, Victor Emmanuel II. It was rather apt that outside was the Macuteo obelisk, telling a story of the relationship between Pharaoh and sun god. The next splendid square, Piazza Navona, facing it the Church of San Agnese. Designed by celebrated architect Borromini, is said to be the site of the saint's martyrdom and one of Rome's best-known Baroque buildings. Another fabulous fountain full of features, the Fountain of the Four Rivers, the Nile, the Danube, the Ganges, and the Rio de la Plata. A homage to the great gods of the four continents. Not to miss out, nautical god Neptune had his own at the north end, resplendent with his terrific trident. A further final fountain was found at the foot of the Spanish Steps at Piazza di Spagna, Fountain of the Ugly Boat, commemorating a great flood of Christmas 1598 of the River Tiber, which left behind a small boat in the square. Without sinking, we ascended the 130-odd steps to the summit, where stands the Trinita dei Monti Roman Catholic Church. Adjacent to the square was a further smaller Piazza Mignonelli, and the Column of the Immaculate Conception, a pillar erected presenting the proclamation of Virgin Mary's conception being free from original sin. Having had our fill of piazzas, it was time to drop a topping or two en route to the match, and fill up on pizzas. Crossing the river, we docked at Bonci Pizza Area, famous for serving up its pizza al taglio in scissor-cut square slices, meaning we could sample a good selection of our tastiest toppings. Sufficiently stuffed, we finally set sail for the Stadio Olimpico and SS Lazio versus Vitesse Arnhem in the Europa League. We jumped aboard the what turned out to be free, busy number 32 bus from Ottaviano, travelling along Viale Angelico to the Olimpico. We weren't sure whether this was the fair or just fair. Able to seat over 70,000 fans, this classic ground and complex was vast. Landlord to both Lazio and Roma since 1953, it was named the Olimpico in 1955 after Rome won hosting duties for the 1960 Summer Olympics. When we arranged the trip, we hadn't realised that for Lazio this was a dead rubber, and they had already qualified, which may have reflected the small attendance of just 8,226. This may also explain the several thorough security checks we went through, having our passports checked 3 times. These were either some bored bouncers or the fact we had English written all over us. Still, at €20 it was just the ticket. The section supporters in attendance, however, were united, if underpowered. Both sets of ultras in a tete-a-tete, the Vitesse vitriol doing their best, despite being isolated away in the opposite corner. The club theme played, player announcements made. We were ready for action. Here's some pre-kick-off sounds for your satisfaction. The Lazio manager was Simone Inzaghi, a famous former Lazio striker, spending over 10 years at the club as a player after signing for them in 1999. The younger brother of decorated Italian international striker Filippo, he bettered his bro to the 2000 Scudetto scoring the opening goal in a final day victory that pipped Juventus at the post. He would go on to manage Inter Milan in 2021 and is presently in charge of Al Hilal in Saudi. The Vitesse manager, Henk Fraser, a former Dutch international and Eredivisie title-winning centre-back, won the Dutch Cup in his first season, Vitesse's first major trophy and qualification into the Europa League competition. The Lazio team included Spaniard Luis Alberto, a flop at Liverpool between 2013 and 2016, winger Nani, well known to Man United fans, and an unused sub, goalkeeper Thomas Strakosha, who only made a handful of appearances for Brentford between 2022 and 2024. The Vitesse team was dominated by Chelsea loanees, American centre-back Matt Miazga, who also had a loan spell at Reading, right-back Fankati Darbo, who went on to have a loan spell at Swindon, played many games for Coventry, and then went on to also play for Forest Green and Wraith Rovers in Scotland. He actually retired at age 30. A young Mason Mount, who went on to have some games for Derby and is presently at Man United, and youngster Charlie Colkett, probably the most interesting career of them all. Went on to have loan spells at Bristol Rovers and Swindon Town, then moved to Cheltenham, Crewe, Notts County, Gateshead, and Croydon, having represented England through age groups under 16 to under 20. It seems a big shame that he never fulfilled his full potential. Finally, Milot Rashica, who recently had some time at Norwich City. Both sets of fans were ready for kick-off. Vitesse needed to win, and hoping the other tie in the group, Belgian Zulte Waregem, were nice enough to beat Nice. So they were the team showing the game meant something from the start. Tim Matav's shooting wide early on, then winning a free kick from another venture forward, in a great position just to the right of the D. Mount rolling the ball to his right, and top scorer Brian Linson firing a fine right-footed strike off the underside of the bar past an unsighted and unmoved Ivan Vargic. Vitesse won ahead in the 13th minute. This brought Lazio to life, and young forward Simone Palomi forced a good save from Remco Pasveer in the Vitesse net after a pretty passing move. Now fancying it in the 42nd minute, the equaliser came. The ball was switched out wide right to Dusan Basta in acres of space, and his deep ball to the far left side of the area was sweetly smashed into the bottom left corner by Luis Alberto. Celebrating by putting the ball under his shirt and sucking his thumb, the now expectant move when expecting, in this case son Lucas, born in 2018. One at half-time, and that's how it stayed. An even start to the second, but despite pushing in the last 20 with chances for Castellanos, the impressive Mount, Van Bergen and Miazga, Vitesse could not find their second. The Dutch team's disappointment compounded by Nice, pounding Waregem 3-1 and knocking both teams out. Scant consolation, but my man of the match was Vitesse's Kosovan attacker, Rashika, a FIFA fine that did great for me in the game. Laboured Lazio would quit at the quarter-final stages of the competition, but at least with a glut of goals. Dispatching Romanians FCSB 5-2 on aggregate, then Ukrainians Dynamo Kiev 4-2 respectively. After winning the quarter-final first leg 4-2 in Rome, and ahead 5-2 after taking the lead in the second in Austria against Red Bull Salzburg, the head and legs both went in a sensational second half collapse, including 3 goals in 4 minutes. If Red Bull does give you wings, they were clipped from the Eagles. Vitesse would again qualify for the competition for the following season, beating ADO Den Haag then Utrecht in the Eredivisie European playoffs, after finishing 6th in the league. I do wonder if the long link-up between the club and Chelsea harmed them in the long run, after recently having such financial problems and points deductions. Relegation and the Dutch FA even revoking their professional licence in 2025. With it being a relative early kick-off at 7 PM, we weren't ready to take flight just yet, and had time for a couple of shots of our own. Donning fetching blue thermal capes and entering our first ice club. We sat on chilly Caesar thrones amongst sub-zero sculptures. With Bruno Mars 24-karat magic resounding in our ears, we reflected on our golden getaway and how much we had packed in. Vim in the vodka ensuring a warm walk back to our hotel, past the still rather vocal Vitesse vacationers. We could have a leisurely morning before the airport, so we stayed local and gorged on gelato and went Dutch on some Queen's chips. So you've had the large portion. That leads us nicely into this episode's City Summary. Pizzas and piazzas, ruins and religion, fabulous fountains, Fiat's park frontways, lively locals, and admirable ancient ancestry. Once more, thanks for listening to European Goals. The sunset on our EasyJet back over the Tyrrhenian Sea. Next, a trip of more history and tyranny. It took our breath away like so many. A new city, a new country, Germany. Salute!